I'm very happy to be with you today and to walk you through the latest developments on EU energy policy here. And of course, we have Kristin with us, and she's a very active member at EERA, the European Energy Research Alliance. She participates to the policy working groups, to which, of course, you are all invited to attend. They take place roughly once per month, but well, I can give you more information about those later if needed. And also she is a part of the executive committee. So of course she is familiar also with the information that I am going to provide you with today. And last but not least, before starting, of course, do not hesitate to interrupt me if you have questions or comments. All right, so without further ado, I will dive into the presentation, starting to give you a general overview of where we are at now at institutional and political level. So we're in the second half of the Spanish presidency of the Council of the European Union, which is bound to end now at the end of the year in December 2023, and this will be followed by the Belgian presidency in what it is called and known as the white semester. The white semester is the period of time also preceding elections. So the actual institutional activity will be on until more or less April this year, and after the end of April, there will be a recess to allow for the campaigning for the European Parliament's elections. The European Parliament's elections will be held between the 6th and the 9th of June, and it will be the 10th time since 1979. And there are the moment we're experiencing now here in Brussels is of a hurry to conclude a lot of the work pending by the end of the year or by the beginning of next year, and also because the new European Parliament, which will also have then a say in the new College of Commissioners, which will be in office starting from November of next year. They will have no obligation to take up the files which have not been wrapped up upon by April this year. So there is a lot of hurry to finish on a lot of files, and of course it is a very important moment for us because there are a lot of challenges linked to what will be the new institutional and political landscape of next year. So how will the new European Parliament look like? What will happen to the European Green Deal, to the Green Agenda? Will it be maintained? What impact there will be also for energy research? So we have started to investigate a bit internally to get to know a bit of the projections and forecasts for the new term. And what we can see for the moment being is that there will be a continuation in the downward trend in the centrist group vote shares, which is something which is going on since 2009. And also the main parties would represent approximately 42% of seats, and any combination of political factions will find it much more difficult to reach a solid majority. So the current projections tell us that there will be a parliament which will be more fragmented, and in which to reach majorities will be more complicated. And this situation is also reflected at the Council of the European Union, which is to say the member states. We have tried to derive a few insights from these projections, but of course everything is changing. There's nothing set in stone, so we're analyzing as things progress. Also because there's a lot happening on the political spectrum, also in geopolitical terms, and this can of course have a huge influence on how the voters will change their attitude towards the vote. But if we had to take a picture now, we would see that we can anticipate a partial move away from the alignment with the von der Leyen Commission's flagship Green Deal. So, and also that the upcoming term will likely shift primary focus from climate and energy policy formulation, which has been characterizing these last 5 years, to policy implementation. And also, if climate neutrality commitments will be likely upheld, EU leaders are expected to initiate a gradual softening of climate pledges. Last but not least, we can anticipate that regulation in the following term will be more likely to favor a more industry-friendly approach, and that there will be a continued focus on short-term priorities, so on implementation challenges. So this is just to give you a bit of the flavor of the political landscape we're navigating in, and as I've said before, we're following, but these things are also moving and changing. For example, we have seen already quite a lot of shifts from June of this year until October. That is when we have been starting monitoring the different trends. Just for you to know, we have you may have heard that the key person of the European Green Deal, it is to say Frans Timmermans, resigned as Executive Vice President in August of this year to run for the post of Prime Minister in Dutch elections. So this gave start to a political saga for his replacement. So and at the beginning he was replaced only by Maroš Šefčovič as responsible for the Green Deal. But then Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, basically she decided to split the portfolio of Timmermans into two different portfolios. So she has created a new post for climate commissioner, which went to the Dutch national Wopke Hoekstra, and she left the responsibilities only related to the Green Deal to Maroš Šefčovič. Now these two appointments are official. They went through extensive grilling also at European Parliament level. The Dutch candidate, he was particularly under fire because he worked at Shell and he was not from Timmermans' party, so he needed to give extensive reassurances that he would have not changed the Green Deal agenda, which was set by Frans Timmermans. And the same also for Maroš Šefčovič, who came under fire for being a member of the Slovak party Smer, which is traditionally close to Russia. But now these appointments are official. So these are the two new people who are replacing Frans Timmermans in his role as climate commissioner and Green Deal chief. Last institutional political news is the UK, which has regained access to Horizon Europe, to the Horizon Europe research program. since the 7th of September. So UK researchers will be finally able to participate in projects from the 2024 working programs onwards. And as you may know, this has been the end of a lengthy negotiation process after Brexit. Now I will dive more specifically into the policies on which we're working for the moment. This first slide is dedicated to the State of the Union address, which give us in Brussels a bit of a compass of where we're coming from and where we're heading to. Of course, the European Commission has only 1 year to go before a new College of Commissioners takes office. So it was mostly dedicated to underline past achievements, but also a few new announcements were also made in that occasion. For the past achievements, Ursula von der Leyen emphasized that thanks to the joint gas purchases, there were no shortages of gas last winter, and that the price of gas went from 300 euros per megawatt hour to 35. And she outlined this experiment of the joint gas purchase as a very good one to be replicated also for critical raw materials and for the production of hydrogen. So the idea would be to pool demand on a voluntary basis to increase demand and match it with future production of hydrogen. She also announced the constitution of clean transition dialogues with industry and the start of a new European wind power package for easier funding and permitting, on which I will get back in a slide further on. Also, she made crystal clear that the future of our clean tech industry has to be made in Europe. She announced the launch of an anti-subsidy investigation into Chinese electric vehicles. And also she underlines always on hydrogen that the EU is attracting more investment in clean hydrogen than US and China combined. So she underlined once more that the idea is to make Europe as the place to be for hydrogen. She also condemned China's export restrictions for gallium and germanium and emphasized the need to strengthen the critical raw material supply chain and announced the getting together soon of the first meeting of the Critical Raw Materials Club. Of course, there were a lot of criticism as well to her speech. She didn't mention nuclear. She didn't mention the updated 2040 greenhouse gas emission target, which is due by mid-2024, the international action and COP28. So analysts said that her speech stayed the course, but that she hasn't shown any additional ambition in it. I will now go into the Green Deal Industrial Plan. This plan encompasses 3 big policy streams on which EERA has been particularly active this year. That is to say, the Critical Raw Materials Act, the Net Zero Industry Act, and the Electricity Market Design Reform. Just to give a bit of a context for the Green Deal Industrial Plan, this was launched back in February this year, basically to counteract the US Inflation Reduction Act and the fact that this US move foresees a huge investment in clean energy with $370 billion of tax incentives, grants, and loan guarantees. So the Green Deal Industrial Plan it encompasses a lot of measures, but as said, the 3 biggest policy streams are Critical Raw Materials Act, Net Zero Industry Act, and Electricity Market Design Reform. For the Critical Raw Materials Act, this is just these two slides are just to give you a bit of an overview, especially of the high dependency that that Europe has on critical minerals, especially from China. So we see that, for example, 90% of the rare earth elements are imported from China. For batteries, there has been an increase of 65% of imported electric vehicle Lion batteries. And also we see a very strong dependency for PV and wind turbines. So this is just to give you a bit of the flavor of why also the European Commission has decided to act boldly on the issue of critical raw materials. So they came up with the Critical Raw Materials Act in March of this year, which in their view has to create the basis for building up use capacities and strengthening resilience of the European critical raw material supply chains. The key measures contained in this act are both to strengthen domestic supply chains as well as to reinforce international engagement to develop mutually beneficial partnerships with third countries. Of course, the European Union is well aware that we will never get to an independence and autonomy on critical raw materials. Therefore, also the international level will be key in this respect. The Act sets benchmarks to increase domestic capacity for raw materials, extraction, processing, and recycling, with aspirational targets corresponding to 10, 40, and 15% of the EU's annual consumption. And when the Critical Raw Materials Act was published, already there were a lot of voices saying that these aspirational targets are really more of an utopia. But then it came also the European Parliament to even revise these targets upwards, especially for recycling and for processing. So now the legislative phase of this file is within the Council of the European Union, which traditionally lowers a bit the ambitions of the European Commission and of the European Parliament. But we still have to see how this will play out. Also to be noted is that at the end of September, the International Energy Agency held the first summit on critical raw materials, which also testifies the importance of this subject on the political landscape. And the Commissioner for Trade, Breton, he said very clearly, Europe cannot replace its dependence on fossil fuels with a dependence on critical metals. So he re-emphasized again the critical importance of this act to step up internal production and to work with like-minded partners. Other big policy within the Green Deal Industrial Plan is the Net Zero Industry Act, whose aim is to scale up the manufacturing of clean technologies by increasing the use manufacturing capacity of technologies that support the clean energy transition and release extremely low, zero, or negative greenhouse gas emissions when they operate. Now, we have seen a big debate about this Net Zero Industry Act, especially as far as the famous list of strategic net zero technologies is concerned, because these technologies will be subject to a 40% domestic manufacturing target, and also to fast-track permitting procedures. So the European Parliament and the Council of the European Union have been debating very strongly on this list. Famously, in the proposal of the European Commission at the very end, nuclear was excluded from this list. But now, in a recent vote by the European Parliament's Industry Committee, this list was expanded once again to include all types of nuclear fission as well as fusion, sustainable fuels, and biogas. So again, we're really in the middle of the legislative process, and now this file will be discussed by member states, and there's a lot of lobbying pressure which is going on this file. Last but not least, the last file from the Green Deal Industrial Plan relates to the reform of the electricity market design. This was also put forward together with the Net Zero Industry Act and with the Critical Raw Materials Act in March of this year, with the aim to better protect vulnerable consumers, support non-fossil flexible resources, and stabilize prices over the long term. There are two main parts of this file. The first part, known as REMIT, the Regulation of Wholesale Energy Market Integrity and Transparency, was a kind of an easy walk. It was agreed on earlier this summer with the aim to improve EU's protection against market manipulation through better monitoring and transparency, whereas the rest of the file proved to be way more contentious on the topics of the contracts for difference and of capacity mechanisms. And also here we have seen, after months of discussions, the EU countries to get to a position on the last 17th of October, and making it ready for talks with the European Parliament to finalize it finally in the coming months. So on the issue of the contracts for difference, which was one of the main contentious points of the reform, countries resolved the issue with a new text that makes these contracts for difference in existing infrastructure optional, but mandatory for investments in new power generating facilities, which are based on wind energy, solar energy, geothermal energy, hydropower without reservoir, and nuclear energy. So this is the latest updates which we can give on this file. And here, just for your reference, there's the definition of the contracts for difference, because maybe not everyone is familiar with this term. So I leave it there for your reference. Very recently, just last week, we have seen the publication of the 8th State of the Energy Union report. So basically, this is a picture which the European Commission gives every year to let us know where we are at in energy terms. It analyzes the EU's energy and climate policies, responses to the energy crisis, the implementation of the Energy Union, and the progress of member states on national energy and climate plans, as well as the upcoming challenges to the EU's energy system. So the main takeaways, which we have quickly skimmed through, are that this report describes basically how the EU has responded to Russia's aggression in Ukraine, and this is basically by reducing its gas demand by more than 18% compared with the previous 5 years, saving thereby around 53 billion cubic meters of gas. Also, the report highlights that in 2022, 39% of electricity was generated by renewables, and that in particular, the month of May of 2022 saw wind and solar energy surpass fossil fuels for the first time in EU's electricity generation. Also, it highlights the solar and wind energy generating capacities grew respectively by 60 and 45% since 2021. And overall, EU's net greenhouse gas emissions fell by 3%, reaching 32.5% reduction compared to 1990 levels. However, of course, the report also highlights the need for the EU to act much faster when it comes to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and deploying new renewable energy to meet the targets of 2030, but also of 2050. Here, just very quickly, as Christine was mentioning just before we started this webinar, the European Commission actually promised action also in the State of the Union address I told you about earlier on wind. So wind is maybe the sector on which the European Union is trying to get a model out of also for the other technologies. So they have published this new wind power action plan on last 24th of October with the aim to align clean energy transition with industrial competitiveness to meet the renewable energy targets set by the Renewable Energy Directive. It sets out 6 areas for immediate action to be taken together by the Commission, the Member States, and industry. So this is very important to be underlined that this will be really a joint effort on an institutional and industry level. And these 6 areas encompass the acceleration of deployment through increased predictability and faster permitting, improved auction design, access to finance, fair and competitive international environment, skills, and industry engagement and member state commitments. Just to, it is worth underlining that the wind industry was experiencing a lot of difficulties, and it was really losing competitiveness. So the idea also now from the European Commission is not to repeat the same mistakes, if I can say it in this way, that they have been doing with the PV industry. So it is a plan really to get to the rescue of the wind technology industry. Very quickly, on the research, on the main research and innovation files which we have under the loop. First is the Strategic Technologies for Europe platform, the so-called STEP. This was put forward in July of this year. It is a proposal to support European leadership on critical technologies, which is now within the Council of the European Union and the European Parliament. It is basically about 10 billion euros the European Commission is asking member states to divert from other priorities to top up the budget of the European Innovation Council. And MEPs now in October voted their STEP negotiating position to seek extra 3 billion euros on top of this 10 billion proposed by the European Commission. And they have underlined that they would like to see this step to be more aligned with industrial competitiveness legislation, in particular with the Critical Raw Materials Act and the Net Zero Industry Act. So this is also one of the files which is in the middle of the legislative process. Equally, in a summer this year, was very rich for research and innovation files, July of this year. The European Commission has given the member state a list of 10 new partnerships to be set up under Horizon Europe, putting together European, national and private funding. Of this list of 10 new partnerships of particular interest for our constituency, for EERA, would be the innovative materials for EU, the raw materials for the green and digital transition, the social transformation and resilience public-private research partnership, as well as the solar photovoltaics. So if approved by member states, these new public-private research partnerships would add to the current portfolio of 49 joint research programs as of 2025. Also, there was a new proposal for a new Horizon Europe mission focused on the new European Bauhaus. So this is also something which is going through the legislative process now, and also a proposal to improve research careers. In a nutshell, this proposal is aimed at supporting stable and well-paid opportunities for researchers, for them to basically remain in Europe, as Europe is experiencing a brain drain, especially towards the US for research careers, address precariousness, and make Europe as an enticing destination for international talents. And also on this, we're in the middle of the legislative process. And for you to know, DG RTD is hosting a conference on research careers on 21st and 22nd of November, for which all details are included in the link here in the slides. Maybe very quickly on this, we have seen now in September, October, a few regulations entering into force. So these are laws which are applying. So the first is on the EU carbon border adjustment mechanism, which seeks to level the playing field by ensuring both EU and foreign manufacturers are subject to equivalent carbon prices. So this is in force. The CHIPS Act also, which seeks to bolster Europe's competitiveness and resilience in semiconductor technologies and applications, with a very ambitious target to double its global semiconductor market share to 20% by 2030. And last but not least, also the revised Energy Efficiency Directive, which has significantly raised EU's ambition for energy efficiency. And on this, I would like to underline that it establishes the energy efficiency first principle as a fundamental principle of EU energy policy, and gives to this principle legal standing for the first time, which means that energy efficiency now must be considered by EU countries in all relevant policy and major investment decisions taken in the energy and non-energy sectors. So these files now, they have concluded their legislative process and are effectively in force. This is not related to Europe specifically, but of course, the European Union has a very big role to play within it. So I've decided to leave this slide to mention that, of course, we're preparing for the COP28, which is starting at the end of this month in Dubai. And of course, now we are seeing also the European Union's position shaping. The European Union had previously signed an intention to bring greenhouse gas emissions from minus 55% to minus 57% by 2030 during COP27, but member states agreed now their COP28 joint stance on 16 October, and this stance does not include new emissions reduction targets. Also, but at the same time, yes?
Maybe you should wrap up in order to save time for some questions.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, thank you. Because I think this is I'm really wrapping up. So this is for EU and COP28. So we're also preparing an EERA for that, and our Secretary General will be present on site. And this is really the last 2 slides I have. It is just for you to know that we had a very important high-level policy conference now on the 17th of October. Here there are all the key data related to the conference. We also recording and presentations. And just to conclude, this was the occasion to launch 2 very important reports: the report on energy demand reduction and the critical raw materials policy analysis. So these 2 reports, you can access them through this QR code, and of course also through the EERA website. And this concludes my updates. And of course, I am now available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much,